The morning sun spilled through the tall windows of Alabaster Row, one of the city's most elegant restaurants. Cream walls, polished marble floors, and a soft amber glow from the chandeliers even in daylight. Guests walked in and out carrying confidence like perfume, brushing past servers as if they were part of the decor. In the middle of that quiet storm worked Elara. She moved with a gentleness that seemed out of place in a world that rewarded loudness. Her apron was crisp, her hair tucked neatly behind her ears, and her voice no louder than it needed to be. She didn't rush, but she was never slow. She simply flowed, gliding from table to table with the kind of presence that felt almost invisible. And maybe that's why people treated her like she was. A group of morning regulars chatted loudly as she set down their water glasses. "Careful," one man muttered without looking up from his phone. "I know these types. Drop anything if you breathe too hard." The others chuckled. Elara didn't flinch. She had learned long ago that some people communicated by stepping on others. She smiled politely, took their orders, and retreated. What she didn't know, what no one in the restaurant knew, was that a man at the far end of the room had been watching her movements with quiet interest. Not in a predatory way, in an observant way. His name was Callum Ward, known in business circles as the quiet millionaire. He was a man in his early 40s with soft-lined worry etched between his brows, dressed in a charcoal coat that looked expensive without trying. He sat alone by the window, a simple cup of tea untouched before him. He didn't come here for the food. He came here for silence. And yet, silence always brought him face to face with truth. From his seat, he noticed things others ignored. How Elara steadied an elderly woman's trembling hands as she guided her through the menu. How she discreetly replaced a toddler's dropped spoon without making the mother feel incompetent. How she softened her voice when speaking to someone clearly anxious, but brightened it for someone lonely. Every small action had intention, kindness, not as personality, but as survival. Callum recognized it. He had lived it. To the world, Elara was a waitress. To herself, she was a collection of small wounds stitched together over time. She'd grown up in a home where everything was loud. Anger, disappointment, broken promises. Quietness became her escape. Books became her friends. Listening became her shield. At 19, she moved to the city with nothing but a backpack and a promise to herself that she would treat others the way she wished someone had treated her. It wasn't always easy. Customers snapped fingers. Managers criticized mistakes she didn't make. People talked about her like she wasn't standing right there. But she stayed soft. Not because she was weak, but because she refused to let the world take away the only part of herself she valued. Still, her softness often meant people saw her as simple. She wasn't. Callum Ward was a man whose name carried weight, but whose heart carried more. He wasn't like the billionaires and CEOs that graced magazine covers. He didn't chase attention. He didn't flaunt his wealth. If anything, he tried to blend in, though his posture always gave him away. Shoulders slightly tensed, eyes sharply aware, as if he lived one step ahead of chaos. Once he had been loud. Once he had wanted to prove himself. But years of success had taught him that the loudest people were often the loneliest. He had built companies, saved struggling families through anonymous donations, and rescued dozens from disasters his businesses helped fix. But the world didn't care about kindness. It cared about net worth. He never minded that. But he minded cruelty. He minded it deeply. Elara didn't notice Callum until she accidentally walked past his table and dropped her pen.
It rolled toward his chair, and she knelt to grab it at the same moment he leaned down to help. Their eyes met briefly. Her apologetic smile was gentle. "Sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you." Callum shook his head. Not at all. His voice held warmth she didn't expect. Most customers responded to her with impatience or politeness that felt hollow, but this man's tone carried something rare: respect. She thanked him and hurried away, cheeks warm with embarrassment, unaware that Callum kept watching her, not in fascination, but in recognition. Something about her reminded him of someone he once knew, someone who had taught him that kindness was a language spoken by the bruised. At the regulars' table, the loud group was growing restless. One man snapped, "What's taking so long? It's eggs, not surgery." Another laughed, "She's probably messing it up. You know how these people are." Callum's gaze slowly lifted toward them. His fingers tapped the table once. A habit, a warning. He didn't intervene, not yet. He wasn't the type to step in without understanding the full picture. But he watched. He listened. He measured. And in that quiet measurement, something heavy began forming behind his calm expression. Elara returned with their plates, setting them down gently. "Here you go, scrambled, no salt, omelet with spinach, sunny side up." The man closest to her interrupted, "God, your voice is so quiet. Can you speak like a normal person? It's not that hard." Elara froze for 1 second, just one, a tiny flinch, almost invisible. But Callum saw it. He saw every flicker of pain she tried to swallow. The customer continued, "You should try smiling. Might help your tips. Though with service like this, good luck." More laughter. Elara whispered, "I'm sorry. I'll do better." Then she walked away, shoulders slightly curled inward. Callum took a slow sip of his tea, even though it had long gone cold. Not because he was thirsty, but because he was thinking, measuring, preparing. Ahead of him lay a moment he had not anticipated but could no longer ignore. A collision between cruelty and kindness, between silence and truth. And soon a single question he would ask, a question only Elara could answer, would shift the entire room. But for now, the restaurant didn't know it was holding its breath. If you're enjoying the emotional depth so far, like, comment, and subscribe to see how this powerful story unfolds.
The lunch rush crept in, a subtle shift in the restaurant's energy. More footsteps, louder conversations, the clinking of glasses and cutlery rising into a soft chaos. Elara steadied herself, inhaling deeply as she reached the counter to pick up another tray. Her hands trembled slightly. She hated that they trembled. It wasn't the weight of the food, it was the weight of words, sharp, careless words that bruised without ever leaving marks. "Table 7 again," the chef muttered sympathetically. "They're complaining already." Elara forced a smile. "It's okay, I'll handle it." But it wasn't okay, and Callum knew it. He watched her approach the difficult table again, movements slower now, posture tighter. He recognized the signs, someone trying very hard not to break in public. At table 7, the ringleader of the group leaned back in his chair, arms folded in smug expectation. "There you are," he said loudly, making sure nearby tables heard. "Finally! Do you move this slow for everyone or just us?" A few guests glanced over. Elara kept her voice soft. "I'm sorry for the delay. Here are your refills." "Stop apologizing." He snapped the words like a command. "It's annoying." Another chimed in.
Maybe she doesn't speak English properly. Laughter, snickers, eyes drifting toward her like she was entertainment. Callum put his cup down. Slowly, quietly, with intention. Elara tried to respond, but the words wouldn't come out. Her throat felt tight, her breath hitched. She swallowed hard and attempted a tiny smile, one that broke before it fully formed. She set down the refill, and her hand accidentally brushed the customer's water glass. It wobbled slightly. The man smirked, leaning closer. "Careful, we wouldn't want you to break something with those shaky hands." The others laughed again. A tiny, strangled sorry fell from her lips. She turned to leave, and then a voice cut through the room, calm and steady as warm water. "Excuse me," Callum said from across the restaurant. It wasn't loud, it wasn't sharp, but it traveled, smooth and clear, somehow commanding the air. Elara froze mid-step. The customers turned, annoyed. Callum rose from his chair with the slow grace of someone who never rushed, yet always arrived precisely when he needed to. He walked toward the group, adjusting his coat with one hand, his expression unreadable. "Is there a problem?" one customer asked, irritated. Callum didn't respond. He looked at Elara instead. Really looked. Soft eyes, calm posture, no judgment. "Elara," he said gently, reading her name from the tag on her apron, "may I ask you something?" She blinked, confused and nervous. Yes?" He tilted his head slightly. "Do you know the word reduced means?" The table scoffed. "Seriously? She's a waitress, not a dictionary." But Callum didn't look at them. His gaze stayed on her, steady, patient, encouraging. Elara hesitated, unsure if this was another attempt to belittle her. Callum's voice softened. "I'm not asking to test you. I'm asking because I trust you know." Elara swallowed, gathered herself, then quietly said, "Reduced means to make smaller in amount or degree. In cooking, it refers to thickening a liquid by simmering it so the flavor becomes more concentrated." The restaurant fell silent. Her answer was perfect, clear, articulate, correct. Callum smiled, not widely, softly, with genuine appreciation. "Exactly," he said. "Thank you." The customers blinked in confusion. "That's your big question?" One scoffed. "What, you think she's some kind of expert?" Callum's smile didn't fade. "No, I think she's intelligent." A ripple went through the room. He continued, "And I think you've misunderstood her kindness for lack of ability. That tends to happen when people confuse volume with value." The man at the table stiffened. "What are you talking about?" Callum's tone remained gentle, but his words sharpened with quiet truth. "I've been watching for over an hour. She's handled your cruelty with more grace than you deserved." A few gasps. Someone dropped a fork. Elara's breath caught in her chest. Callum turned back to her. "You don't have to stay here with them. Not right now." "But I—" Her voice wavered. "You're allowed to step away," he said softly. "Kindness doesn't mean you're required to endure disrespect." Something inside her cracked, not in a breaking way, in a freeing way. The manager rushed over, anxious. "Sir, is everything all right?" Callum turned to him, expression polite. "I suggest you check on your staff before your customers. It tells us what kind of establishment you run." The manager stiffened, embarrassed. The rude table now looked anywhere but at each other. For the first time that day, Elara felt seen, fully, profoundly seen. She stepped aside, heart pounding. Callum gave her a nod. Not a nod of pity, a nod of recognition. "You answered perfectly," he said quietly. "Don't ever shrink for people who can't see your worth." Elara's eyes stung, her throat tightened. Why did you do that?" she whispered. "Because someone did it for me, and it changed everything." The room held its breath. Customers whispered. Some stared, some smiled softly. The men at table 7 shifted awkwardly, avoiding eye contact. For the first time that day, Elara felt something she had not felt in a very long time. She felt safe. Not protected, not defended. Safe. Safe enough to breathe again. Safe enough to stand a little taller. Safe enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, someone saw who she really was. Callum returned to his table as calm as if nothing had happened. But everything had changed. The energy, the air, the truth. A single question, one simple question, had unmasked cruelty and restored dignity. And every person in the room felt the shockwave of it.
For the next hour, Elara moved through the restaurant like a ghost, trying to pretend she was still invisible. She kept her eyes down, her steps small, her breaths shallow. The humiliation from earlier still clung to her skin. But the moment with Callum, the moment he spoke up for her, felt even heavier, in a way she didn't know how to hold. People didn't defend her. People didn't protect her. People didn't see her. Not like that. It was easier when no one noticed her at all. So she avoided looking in Callum's direction, even though her heart tugged that way every few minutes. She pretended she didn't glimpse him quietly sipping fresh tea, or that she didn't feel his eyes check on her, gentle and unobtrusive. She didn't know what to do with kindness that asked nothing in return. In the safety of the dish room, she pressed her palms to her face and tried to ground herself. Why did it hurt to be defended? Why did it feel like her bones were vibrating? She had spent years convincing herself she didn't need help, that she could endure anything, that silence was strength. But Callum's quiet intervention cracked something open, something she had boarded shut a long time ago. Her hands trembled again. He shouldn't have stepped in. It made everything worse. No, it made everything better. No, it confused things. No, it revealed things. Elara didn't know what to believe, and that terrified her. Across the dining room, Callum was experiencing his own private tug-of-war. He never intervened like that, not anymore. Not since the world had taught him that even good intentions could be weaponized. He had spent a decade mastering the art of silence, watching, analyzing, donating anonymously, helping from the shadows. He didn't step forward. He didn't get involved. He didn't expose his emotions. But something about Elara's shrinking posture, the way her shoulders curled as if trying to hide her heart, the way she apologized, even when she was hurting, it pulled at an old part of him, a part he thought he'd buried. His mentor, an older woman who ran a small soup kitchen, once told him, "Kind people often break quietly. They don't scream for help, so you have to listen with your eyes." Watching Elara that morning felt like hearing a silent scream. And acting had been instinct. Now that instinct was gnawing at him. Had he embarrassed her? Had he made things worse? Had he crossed a line despite meaning well? He tapped the table lightly with his index finger, anxious, contemplative. He considered leaving. He considered staying. Neither felt right. His internal storm built quietly. The manager approached Callum with a tight smile, the kind used to hide nerves.
"Sir, I apologize for what happened earlier. We've offered those men a discount to smooth things over." Callum's jaw tightened. "A discount," he repeated evenly, "for men who humiliated a member of your staff?" The manager swallowed. "They're regulars, high spenders. We can't upset customers like that. I hope you understand." Callum stared at him, unblinking. "No," he said softly. "I don't understand." The manager cleared his throat, flustered. "Well, if there's anything else you need—" "There is," Callum said. "Treat your staff with the dignity they deserve." The manager stiffened, his lips pressing into a thin line before he walked away. A few customers who overheard whispered. Some nodded appreciatively. Others avoided looking at either of them. The atmosphere thickened with tension. When Elara stepped out from the back, she noticed the manager glaring at her. Great, another consequence for something that wasn't her fault. "Elara," he said sharply, "try not to upset customers next time." She blinked. She had no idea how to respond. I didn't. No excuses." He straightened his tie. "We can't lose regulars over small mistakes." She felt the words like cold fingers around her ribs. Small mistakes. Small problems. Small person. Same story, same ache. She nodded silently, even though it wasn't her mistake. But as she turned, her eyes flicked to Callum's table, and for the first time all day, she looked directly at him. Not with fear, not with gratitude, with confusion. Why was he making everything swirl? 20 minutes later, a sudden crash echoed through the dining room. Someone had knocked over an entire tray of glasses near the main walkway. Shards scattered across the floor. Customers jolted. The server responsible panicked, overwhelmed, and the manager barked orders that only made things worse. "Someone clean this up," he snapped. "Elara!" She froze. This was the one section she wasn't assigned to, but the manager's tone left no room to argue. "Right away," she whispered. As she knelt, carefully gathering broken glass with trembling hands, Callum rose halfway from his chair in alarm. "Elara," he called gently, "don't touch that. You'll cut yourself." The manager shot him a look. "She's fine. It's her job." Callum's stare hardened. "A rarity. I've read your job listings. They mention service, not self-harm." The manager sneered. "Sir, please sit." A small gasp escaped Elara as a sharp shard sliced her palm, blood instantly welling up. Callum exhaled sharply, deep, controlled, distressed. He stepped closer. "Stop," he said softly, almost pleading. "Please, stand up." Elara's breath trembled. I'm okay." "You're bleeding. You're not okay." Their eyes locked. And in that moment, in that fragile, suspended breath, she realized he wasn't intervening to look heroic. He wasn't responding out of impulse. This wasn't pity. This wasn't charity. It was concern, real concern, human concern, concern she wasn't used to receiving, and concern she didn't know how to accept. The manager stepped forward, irritated. "It's just a scratch." Callum's jaw tightened. "No, it's a human being." He grabbed a napkin, approached slowly, and held it out to her, not touching her, not crowding her, simply offering. Elara hesitated. Her own fear warred with an unfamiliar warmth. Finally, trembling, she placed her hand in the napkin he held. It was the first time she allowed him to help her. The entire restaurant watched, and the moment bound them, not romantically, not dramatically, but inevitably. Because sometimes the universe doesn't bring people together through grand gestures. Sometimes all it takes is a scratch, a quiet voice, and a hand offered gently enough that someone hurting finally accepts it. If this rising tension moved you, follow and subscribe for the next emotional chapter. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts.
The kitchen doors swung open as Leela rushed inside, her breath sharp and uneven. She tried to hide behind a storage shelf, but the tears wouldn't stop. Her hands trembled from the humiliation, the sting on her cheek still hot. She pressed her palms over her eyes. Why does kindness always cost her so much? Why does she always end up being the target? Just then the room shifted. The sound of slow footsteps approached. It was the quiet old man, but his posture was different now. He stood straighter, his eyes no longer timid. The gentle softness was still there, but beneath it was authority, quiet power, and a dignity that made the entire room feel smaller. "Miss," he said softly, his accent thick but warm, "you, kind, very kind. Do not cry." Leela quickly wiped her face and shook her head. "I'm sorry you had to see that. I'm sorry they treated you that way too. I didn't want him hurting anyone else." The old man nodded slowly, like he was studying his heart rather than her words. "You protected me," he said, "even when everyone else pretended not to see." For the first time since she entered the kitchen, Leela breathed. Then something unexpected happened. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small leather-bound notebook, simple, worn on the edges, with gold lettering in Japanese. He opened it carefully. Inside was a corporate crest, a symbol she recognized from countless news articles about one of the world's most influential private foundations. Before she could ask anything, the kitchen door burst open. The restaurant manager, pale and sweating, ran in. Sir, I'm so sorry. We didn't know you were coming today. If we had known..." Leela blinked. "Wait, what?" The entire kitchen went silent. The manager bowed repeatedly, nearly stumbling over his own feet. "We've prepared the private dining hall upstairs. The driver is ready. The staff has been informed." The old man gently raised his hand, silencing him. He pointed to Leela. "She is the reason I stay." The manager froze. The cooks froze. Even the freezers seemed to stop humming. Leela stared at him, stunned. "But I didn't do anything special," she whispered. The old man smiled, a warm, genuine smile like sunlight through frost. "Kindness is special, more rare than diamonds." Her throat tightened. "Sir, I thank you, but I really don't understand who you are." The manager swallowed hard. "Leela, this is Mr. Sato, chairman of the Sato Group, one of the richest men in Japan. He owns over 100 companies. He's basically a billionaire." Leela's breath caught, and suddenly everything made sense. The quiet confidence, the calmness in the face of disrespect, the reason everyone was now panicking. But he didn't care about any of that. He only cared about the fact that she helped him when no one else did. The old man closed his notebook and stepped closer. His voice lowered to something almost fatherly. "Come," he said gently. "There is something I must show you. Something I think you deserve." Leela hesitated, confused but trusting. She wiped her cheeks, straightened her apron, and followed him as the entire staff stepped aside, respectful, silent, humbled. And just like that, the girl who was slapped for helping him now walked beside the man whose kindness could change her life forever.
Lila followed Mr. Sato through the quiet hallway that led to the restaurant's private dining rooms. Her steps were slow, unsure. She had no idea why he wanted her here, or why her heart was pounding so hard. He stopped in front of a door with frosted glass and golden lettering. Then he opened it. Inside was a breathtaking room, warm lights, polished oak furniture, and a peaceful atmosphere completely different from the chaos downstairs. In the center of the room sat a single folder. Mr. Sato gestured for her to sit. "I come here," he said softly, "to see how people treat others when they think no one important is watching." Lila looked up sharply. He smiled faintly. "Kindness is the true measure of character." She swallowed. "Sir, I didn't do anything incredible. I just stood up for someone." He shook his head firmly. "No, you stood up for a stranger, with no gain, no witness, no reward." He paused. "This world needs more people like you." He opened the folder. Inside was a contract, neatly printed, with her name at the top. Lila stared, stunned. I don't understand." Mr. Sato adjusted his glasses. "I own this building. I own many restaurants across the city. And I need someone with a heart like yours to lead my new hospitality initiative, a program designed to train, uplift, and protect workers who are mistreated." Lila's eyes widened. You're offering me a job?" "A leadership position," he confirmed. "Higher pay, flexible hours, full scholarship to the Hospitality Academy if you wish to study, all because—" He looked at her with genuine warmth. "You chose kindness over fear." Her vision blurred again, but this time with grateful tears. "Sir, I've never been chosen for anything. I've always been told I'm too quiet, too soft, too easy to ignore." He shook his head gently. "Quiet does not mean weak. Soft does not mean small. Kind does not mean invisible." Those words pierced her heart. The same words she wished someone had told her years ago. He extended a pen. "Sign only if you want to. There is no pressure. Your kindness alone has already honored me." Hands trembling, she took the pen. She thought of the slap, the humiliation, the years of being overlooked. And then she thought of this moment, this room, this man who saw her heart before her status. She signed. Mr. Sato closed the contract with a soft smile, as though sealing a new chapter in her life. "There is one more thing," he said. He stepped aside, revealing a small velvet box on the table. "It is a tradition in my family to give a gift of gratitude to someone who changes our life, even in a small way." Inside was a delicate cherry blossom pin, handcrafted, elegant, shimmering like morning light on spring petals. In my culture, this flower represents resilience, hope, new beginnings. Lila brought a hand to her lips. "It's beautiful. I don't know what to say." "You already said it," he replied softly, "with your actions." For the first time in a long time, Lila felt seen. Not for her mistakes, or her job, or her quiet voice, but for her heart. As they walked out together, the staff watched in awe, not because he was a billionaire, but because he walked beside her as an equal. Outside the restaurant, the sunlight was warm, brighter than earlier, as if the world itself had shifted. Mr. Sato paused. "Miss Lila," he said gently, "today you were the teacher. You reminded me that wealth means nothing if we forget kindness." She smiled, small but radiant. "And you reminded me that kindness still matters in this world." The door closed softly behind them,
And Lila stepped into her new life, not because she fought her way into it, but because she chose kindness when it cost her everything.